in 10th grade, I went to my principal and I said, school thing ain't really working for me. And I tried to drop out. I wanted to drop out because my father was in prison. He'd been in prison for a while. I didn't really meet my mother until I was 24. I went to find her. And I went to drop out of school, and my principal said, well, what are you going to do now? And I looked at her and I said, I'm going to go work in the street pharmaceutical market. You got a pain, we got a cure. He said, you got to stay in school. So they kind of put me in a program that I could go to school from about 8 to 10:30, leave, go earn some money, because I had to pay my father's bail bondsman. If you know anything about bail bondsmen, if you're late, they double the principal. And then I came back for football practice in the afternoon. And through a series of very unlikely events, I went to the University of Texas on a football scholarship. And my first year there, after getting pounded on a little bit, I had a statistics professor who said, look, kid, I think you have a gift for statistics. And I said, really? And I said, I don't really think so. I said, school's not my thing. I really don't do school, And he said, no, stick with me. You stop playing football and do some math with me. So to make a long story short, I ended up majoring in math and graduated in 2.5 years from the University of Texas. And then through, again, a series of very, very unlikely events, I'm now at Harvard, a tenured faculty member there. And things are, things are pretty good. Things are not so bad. When I grew up in the neighborhood, I didn't get nearly as insulted as I do now. And I was having lunch with a pretty good friend now, Soledad O'Brien, a couple of weeks ago. And we went to some fancy restaurant, and I walked in, and I was going to sit down on this very New York-style restaurant. I was going to sit down in the booth and look at the restaurant, and because I was ahead of Soledad. And I went to sit down, and the receptionist, or the host, came to me and said, excuse me, sir. I said, yes. She says, I think you should switch chairs because I think our patrons in the restaurant would prefer to see Soledad O'Brien. I said, wow. New York can be a tough place. Look, in graduate school, in economics, we teach all these arcane mathematical techniques. We're good at that, right? If you have two convex sets, the most efficient way to split them in a particular type of space is a hyperplane. There are all these very complicated mathematical techniques that I learned as an undergraduate math major and as a budding economist. And they're used to study problems like the optimal cake eating problem. I remember sitting in a seminar when I was a graduate student, and a guy came in and says, I'm going to solve the kth order chopstick problem. And someone literally said, wow, I'm on the edge of my seat. All these beautiful, beautiful techniques used to study, I'm going to call them trivial problems. I mean, come on, if you've been poor before, the optimal cake eating problem is the whole cake. I don't understand. And on the other hand, things like affirmative action, things like welfare, things like what are we going to do about public education in America? Those things that are so deeply rooted in the very fabric of who we are and what we're all about. Those things we leave up to Hannity and Combs. This was just amazing to me as a young graduate student. I realized that some of the most brilliant academic minds in the world were only interested in the optimal chopstick problem and the things that we care so deeply about we leave up to talking heads on TV. I remember watching Hannity and Combs. It was about affirmative action, and it was typical Hannity and Combs. One was on one side, the other was on the other. And a guy got on and he said, I lost my house, my car, and my dog, all because a woman got a job that I deserved. And one looked at the other and says, now that's data. And I said, no. See, if you don't remember anything else from today, you got to remember this. The plural form of the word anecdote is not data. We have to, and I want to commit my life to this, we have to use the same rigor, the same approach, the same passion that we use to think about the optimal chopstick problem, to study problems in our community. So I think we need three things if we're going to make progress. We need facts, we need methods, and we need teamwork. So let's talk about the facts. See, no one likes the facts. You know, I gave this speech in Minnesota a couple weeks ago, and I gave a lot of facts about the racial achievement gap, and a woman came up afterwards. She was so sweet. I think she was about 90 years old, and she says, "Honey, let me talk to you for a minute." I said, "Yes, ma'am," because I'm a Southern boy. That's what we do. And she said, "Honey, I like some of your facts, but them other facts, baby, don't tell nobody else them other facts." And I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, you can't order facts a la carte." The average black 17-year-old reads at the proficiency level of the average white 13-year-old. On the SAT, the virtual gateway to our elite colleges and universities, there's no overlap in the distribution. Now, I know people saying tests don't measure everything, and I get it, but when the thermometer tells you you're cold, the first thing you shouldn't do is throw it. We need more facts, and I'm going to say less politics, if we want to make any progress in terms of racial equality. The last part of May and June, I went around to between 80 and 100 schools here in New York City. That's all I did. I just took a car and just went around to schools. The facts are alarming. Okay. Now let me just say this. Let me put an asterisk here, which is the reason I'm here in New York City is because there's no other city that's making this much progress in terms of closing the racial achievement gap. That's for sure. But before we throw a party, we got a long ways to go. I'm here because there are people like Chris Cerf and Joel Klein who I trust and who I admire the work that they're doing. But I'm still here to push them a little bit. Going around to these schools was the best education I've gotten since I learned how to read. Seriously. Some of these schools are in trouble, disarray. You know, I had a 6-year-old come up to me in a school in Bed-Stuy, and I got the same MO with the 6-year-old. You know, I'm 6'2". I stand over them. I say, "How old are you, man?" They say, "I'm 6." I say, "Well, I'm 7." They say, "I don't know if that's right." And I say, "Well, I ate my vegetables." I do the same thing, 6-year-olds the world over. It works. I walk up to this 6-year-old and I said, "What's up, man?" He said, "What's up?" I said, "All right." I said, "How's school, man?" He said, "School ain't shit." I said, "What could be wrong with school at age 6, brother? All you're doing is breaking graham crackers on the line, baby. What is it about that you don't like?" Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I've been in principals' offices where a kid puts his hand through a window because, you know, he got to go to summer school, and this is his reaction to that. And she says, "Roland, I don't know what to do." I said, "What do you mean you don't know what to do?" She said, "Well, I can keep him in school, he can disrupt the class, or I can send him home to his mother, but his mother's on heroin, she's on that bench over there. What do I do?" Right? I'm the youngest tenure professor in the history of Harvard University, but I don't know the answer to that question. It's tough. And I'm not coming to you today with solutions. If someone says to you, if you follow the following 5 steps, you can eliminate the racial achievement gap, you should get up and leave. But I do know that we need facts. We need more facts. And that's what one of the things I'm here doing in New York City, gathering the facts, just putting the facts together to realize how disparate not only the outcomes are, but the resources and the inputs that make schools work. I'm talking about teacher talent. Teacher talent. You want a lesson? Go to the highest performing school, sit in a math class. Go to the lowest performing school, sit in a math class. You'll see something. I was in a math class in June, and I was just sitting there. And they were explaining multiplication. So she said, she gave a matrix, 2 times 2 equals 4, and she showed the whole thing. It was in like a little matrix. And she said, well, you only have to memorize half of this because 15 times 2 equals 2 times 15. And one of the kids said, I don't really understand that. And she said, oh, honey, look, 15, you don't have to worry about that. Just remember, 15 times 2 equals 2 times 15. Flip it. I was like, I'm confused. I got a math degree. We have to figure out a way to get more facts and less politics in the study of racial inequality. The second thing we need are methods. Methods, you can get all the facts in the world, and you'll be just like my 90-year-old friend in Minnesota. She'll say, baby, don't tell anybody all those facts. We have to put context on the facts. We need real methods, serious methods. My favorite social science study says that ice cream causes shark attacks. Ice cream causes shark attacks. When I first heard this, I thought, well, must be something deep going on here. I don't really get it. But it turns out that, well, when people eat ice cream, it's hot outside. When it's hot outside, people go in the ocean. When you go in the ocean, you get bit. I mean, it's easy. My second favorite study in the social sciences is that doctors cause yellow fever. You know how they learn this? You too can be a social scientist. The way they learned this, they looked across Europe and they looked at the provinces where they had the largest breakouts of yellow fever. And they realized in the places where they had the largest concentrations of yellow fever, there were a lot of doctors there. So some genius wrote a paper saying doctors cause yellow fever. Right? You guys laugh. How about this? Black culture is causing the achievement gap. You see, when I say that doctors cause yellow fever, you go, that's funny. When I say ice cream causes shark attacks, you say that's silly. But let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there with the same method of analysis are saying things like culture causes the achievement gap. We got to get serious about methods. Very serious. Right? Chris, he's my good friend. Joe Klein, I like him a lot. Mayor Bloomberg seems pretty impressive to me, although I don't know him personally. I like these guys. But with all due respect, in the same way, I don't want these guys making up a drug like Lipitor for me. I don't want them telling me, without any analysis, what to do with the school system. You know, if you had high blood pressure and you needed something, if you had high cholesterol and you needed something to bring your cholesterol down, you wouldn't get together a committee of people and say, well, what does the union say about this? Are they okay with us bringing down cholesterol? We should think about that. How about this? You wouldn't get these things together. What would you do? You would put together a randomized trial. You would have people who come into the study. You'd track them over time. You'd figure out what the side effects are. And you'd let the FDA approve this. I'm here to tell you this morning, we need the FDA of education. We need a situation where we can have programs vetted, see what works, see what doesn't. I mean, the joke on me down at the Department of Education is I won't tie my shoes without a treatment or control group. And they're right. Because, again, in the same way that I wouldn't trust my friends here to develop a drug to lower cholesterol, I'm not so sure what they should do about public education either, right? We have to study these things. We have to have the right methods. If it's good enough for the medical people, it's good enough for my people, right? If you went to a doctor and the doctor said, well, this really hasn't been vetted, but my friend in St. Louis says it's worked. He got a program, and he says these pills work. Here's 20 pills. Take them. I think you'd be all right. You would run out of there. But when we say the same type of thing about public education, we're much more likely to take it. We got to have serious methods. If we're going to get there from here, we have to have serious methods. If it's good enough for the gold standard in science, it's good enough for us. The third thing is teamwork. I don't do this very well, but I need your help. I do. The fundamental problem with public education, it seems to me, is that as an economist, it's one of the only industries I've ever seen in my entire life where the product is for the producers and not the consumers. And if you look across time, you realize those type of companies don't last very long. Our consumers are children. Period. Period. Chris will tell you. I don't know how many meetings I've been in and say, well, what is the 14-year-old in Crown Heights going to think about this? Right? I got in a little trouble when I first got here. I'm working on tact. I really am. I'm working hard. It's a 12-step process. I'm on step 1. When I had this meeting when I first got here, and I was trying to kick around some ideas for things I thought we could do for kids in the system. And the person across from me says, these are interesting ideas. What do you think the union is going to think about this? And I said, I said, I must have confused you. This is a personal mission between me and the 10-year-olds in Harlem. I'll bring the union up to speed when I get a chance. She looked at me as if, boy, you don't get it. And I looked at her as if, you don't get it. We need teamwork. And I can't stress this enough. There's no chance. I'm not even going to make a dent if I try this alone. That's why when I first got to New York, I looked up Reverend Mason. He connected me with a few other people. But we have to, as a community, decide no more. Amen. Amen. My best friend went to prison when I was 12 years old for shooting a clerk over a pack of gum. This is personal for me. We have to decide that education is the fundamental civil right. I'm not joking. It is the fundamental civil right. I mean, you can go into a booth and vote if you want, but if you can't read who's on the ballot, it doesn't make much sense. You know, you can sit next to a white person on the bus if you want to, but if you ain't got no place to go, it really doesn't make a bit of difference. Education is the battleground. Right? We've got huge disparities in the system. We got huge differences in outcomes. And I've tried to talk to a lot of the so-called elite around New York City. And let me tell you something. It's hard to find people who are willing to put skin in the game. But on the same token, I bet they don't have the guts to go down with me to the South Bronx and tell a 10-year-old that there's a 1 in 3 chance he's going to be in prison in about 8 years. We are in a crisis. And it's so out of control that we can't just do the same things we've been doing. We can't just do the things that sound good. You know, on the left, they say, well, let's just give more money to the schools, kumbaya. And on the right, they say, oh, Lord, these people can't learn. Let's just destroy the schools and give them vouchers to go someplace else. Some of the things I've done here in New York City have been a little controversial. You know, I've taken a lot of flack for giving kids incentives to do well in school. And let me just explain that for whatever time I have left. This is not about some Harvard economist coming down to pay kids money because he thinks that, you know, kids need money to do well in school. That's easy for people to write. What it's about is about making education tangible. Okay? And let me tell you this. If you don't think on the Upper East Side kids have incentives to do well in school, you're fooling yourself. This is about going to a school, kids taking tests. They're going to say the same thing I did. Is this going to count? My grandma going to know about this? Oh, man, I'm going to draw a tree. What you going to draw? This program is about giving kids tangible incentives to be on the path that we want them to be on. Look, my grandmother had an incentive program. It was called the Go Get Your Own Switch program. Now, if Chris had let me do it, man, we would have had a national whipping program up in there. They wouldn't let me do it, so I had to do more positive rewards. That's what this is about. You know, and if you talk to the kids, they're not saying I'm being paid off. They're saying, look, now it means something. My grandmother used to tell me, school is your job. And I used to always ask my grandmother, well, where's my paycheck? And my grandmother say, you eating it. We've been doing this in Dallas for 3 years. And in Dallas, we have a different program than here in New York. In Dallas, I pay kids $2 a book to read books. Okay? They get tested on the books. If they pass the test, they get their $2. Right? People don't like this either. You know, people said, Roland, aren't you worried that you're going to change the culture in school to be not one where kids value Shakespeare, but to which they're passing out notes so that they can just pass your little quizzes that you give them? I said, if you think I'm worried about urban education turning into a place where people are like, I got your Tom Sawyer right here, baby. Then yeah, that'd be good, brother. I like that. I like that a lot. I could hang up the heels after that. People say, aren't you worried, Roland, that people are just going to do it for the money and not for the real value of learning? To which I say, that's a great point. I am worried I'm going to turn them into my Harvard undergraduates. So we started this program in Dallas, $2 a book to read, and 4 times a year we have celebrations. I was just down there for a celebration a couple of weeks ago, and this little girl read 14 books in 2 weeks, man. And we capped them at 20 books per semester. Okay, well, the reason I put the cap there is so that if they read over the cap, I can show you that what this program is doing is not destroying a love for learning, it's cultivating a love for learning. So if they read over 20 books and they're not getting paid, I win. So this little kid named Laquan last year read 36 books in one semester. You know, 36 books. And I came up to him, I said, Laquan, you read 36 books, man. What's that all about? These kids, they think they're smart, see. He looked at me and he said, sir, it was for the joy of learning. I told him, I said, man, you're a grade B hustler, baby. I'm grade A. And his friends laughed about like you did, right? And they were falling out of their chairs. And his friend said, he did it for the joy of Jordans. He ain't doing it for no joy of learning. And I said, maybe that's why you started, Laquan, but you read 36 books, 16 books over the cap. You read 16 books, you didn't get paid for them. Why did you read those 16 books? And he looked at his friend beside him, he says, because I wasn't going to let him beat me reading. Yes. That's what this program is about. This program isn't about waving dollars in front of kids. Come on, give me a break. This program is about giving tangible incentives for kids who some of us can't see the path. Think about the calculation we're asking kids in Crown Heights to make. We're asking them to look down a path they probably have never seen anyone go down. right? This is what they used to tell me: go to school, get a job. It's like, I ain't never seen nobody do that. I mean, I've seen people earn money, but it wasn't doing math. Well, it was doing math, but not your kind of math. We want kids to look down a path that they've likely seen no one go down, and have the wisdom and the fortitude to wait 10 years for a reward. We don't ask any other kids in any other neighborhoods in this country to make that calculation. And I don't want to have our kids make it either. My grandmother used to give me short-term rewards, i.e. switches, to do what was in my long-term best interest. That's what this program's about. It's about getting kids on a path so that once they get to be in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, then college can become its own reward. But by that time, they would have been reading 36 books a semester. We have to think outside the box. I hate to use that term, but we have to think of bold and innovative solutions. What we do is not working. And let me just tell you the truth. I got a lot of fancy friends here in New York. If I wanted to start a Mozart program and say we should teach kids Mozart in school, and I too think we should teach kids to read music. First, I think we ought to teach them to read. Then we can do those other things. But incentives is just one piece of it. We have to think more broadly. We have to think about how we motivate our kids. Let me just put one last idea by you. Let's think about together how we can rebrand achievement. See, incentives, that's a Band-Aid. I think it's going to work. It worked in Dallas. I think it's going to work here in New York. And we're going to find some test score gains. We've done it 20, 30%, but we're still going to have a long ways to go from there. How about rebranding achievement? How about getting our community resources to realize and put together the real potential of us? To get kids to realize that, look, you know, we don't have to do the school is cool thing and the crack is whack. I've heard all that. But the question is, how can we work together to rebrand achievement in a way where our kids realize they can't live without it? Right? And I have some concrete ideas on that, which I won't bore you with this morning. But we've got to bring two things together. We've got to bring the community together to get the politics right so we can get the supply side things right.